This changes everything for the Arizona Cardinals ahead of what's going to be a crucial week 2 matchup against the Panthers. We have multiple huge updates that have massive implications going forward for this team ahead of that matchup. We also have an interesting update surrounding a couple of other key players. A ton to go over today, folks. But before we get into it all, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. We're obviously a brand new channel over here. If you're enjoying and want to enjoy daily Cardinals content, this is the place to be. Going to be uploading every single day for you all season long. Folks, let's dive right into it. There's a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, the Cardinals are coming off of a crucial week 1 game and a week 1 win against New Orleans Saints. And it was obviously one that had the good and great outcome, but maybe the way they got to that win wasn't exactly what fans wanted. But that was a win. A win is a win. But folks, we have a huge update ahead of the game on Sunday surrounding a couple of key players. Now you can see this here just dropped about an hour or two ago. Arizona Cardinals rule out 2 key players for their matchup with the Carolina Panthers. Now hold your breaths. It's not, Kyler Murray. It's not Merv. It's not Budda Baker. It is someone that has actually has had a huge impact over the past, even last season, but especially in game 1 this year. They have ruled out tight end Tip Reiman. Now, we know Ryman, he is a very, very crucial part, especially if you don't understand the run game and things like that. And I'll dive into that a little bit, but they also ruled out inside linebacker Cody Simon. Now you can see here, Ryman is a fundamental part of the Cardinals' 12 and 13 personnel packages in which they deploy 2 or more tight ends as extra blockers to help power their running game. And this has been a crucial, part of their strategy, I guess, heading into this year under, Jonathan Gannon and of course, Drew Petzing. They utilize the run game a lot. We obviously know that. They extended James Conner, all these different things, but they use Tip Reiman specifically for the run game. And they have 2 tight ends out there, multiple tight ends actually at times out there. And this is his 2nd year. And for him to miss, the game against the Panthers, I believe he played 51% of the snaps in last week's game against New Orleans. I mean, we know the Cardinals utilize, you can see in the last paragraph, multi-tight end sets more than any other team in the NFL. And it is very effective. And is it boring at times for Tip Reiman? And, watching, tons of running games? Maybe. Of course, last year, the big storyline was getting Marvin Harrison Jr. involved more. And I do think that's going to happen this year. But for Reiman being out, they're going to have to adjust the running game a little bit. And we saw Trey Benson. He got a huge run last week. Of course, James Conner had a bit more of a quiet game. But with Tip Reiman being out, they had to adjust things. He played over half the snaps last week in his 2nd year. But of course, we have Elijah Higgins, who is going to be able to step up and play in those multi-tight end sets that we know Drew Petzing and Jonathan Gannon like to run. And Gannon spoke out on Elijah Higgins and says he has full confidence in Higgins to step up, against the Panthers. I really thought he played with decisiveness and a lot of violence in week 1, talking about, of course, Elijah Higgins. That was good. He knows what to look for to anticipate the guy he's going to have to block. He does a good job. We use him a lot of different ways, and he handles it. And of course, the goal for these tight ends, like you have Trey McBride, he's going to get, at least my guess, the most receptions this year out of anyone. Maybe Merv if they, if they change it a little bit and give him a lot more. I'm fully expecting, Trey McBride to lead this team in receptions. Now, he is going to be, McBride's kind of Kyler's safety net, like we've seen, last year, and he's really, really good at that. The other tight ends, Ryman, in this case, Elijah Higgins, sorry. They're obviously there to block for the run game. That is what they do. We know this, and they rushed for 146 yards in their season opening win. I'm curious now to see how the run game is going to be with Elijah Higgins. This is a chance for Higgins to step up and show that he is capable of, stepping up and filling in for what Tip Reiman does, especially as it pertains to the run game. Now, you can see this here. The cool thing about him too is once you correct a detail on something, he's smart, so he doesn't have a lot of mental errors. Once he makes the mental mistake and you clean it up, he gets it. He learns quickly. He's a good player. And that was, of course, talking about Blake Gillikin, who has been limited in practice with a back issue. So to touch on Blake Gillikin a little bit, of course, our punter, he is trending the right way and is expected to play. So that's obviously a very good sign. And for Blake Gillikin, obviously, punters don't get talked about a ton with the new rules and things like that. Now they're even more crucial than ever. Obviously, touchback starting at the 35-yard line. It's going to be an exciting game. Now, the reason, again, it changes everything here. I'm very curious, and let me know down below, are you excited to see what Elijah Higgins can do? It's going to be a different, game regardless, because missing your, not your number 1 tight end, but I guess your number 2 tight end, especially in the running game, it's going to be interesting to see how they, how they adjust. This was Tip Reiman's, of course, first game. He picked up 1 reception for 10 yards, but again, if you watch the Cardinals games, his role is not catching the ball and, getting a ton of receptions. His goal is to block for James Conner, block for Trey Benson, and open up the running game for those guys, which ultimately, as we all know, leads to openings for Marvin Harrison Jr., hopefully more receptions from Michael Wilson, all these different guys as the domino effect flows down there. So let me know below what your thoughts are on that. Key matchups and unfortunate, right? Kind of came out of nowhere here for Tip Ryman. It's a foot injury, and also linebacker Cody Simon. I believe he's so he's going to be out as well with a concussion. Now let's dive into a couple things here now, and obviously they're ahead of. It's going to be I mean, you got to win this game, right? Because heading into Sunday, you are in an interesting part of your schedule where it's a bit softer. You start the season a little bit easier, and then it gets really difficult really quickly. And that's why last week's game was a little bit scary in the sense of they didn't play their A game at all. They still won. They should have, put them to rest way earlier in the game. Against the Panthers, you're kind of going up against a similar thing. Now, the Panthers haven't been very good. Bryce Young, he is going to be the guy to watch, of course. Now, we know Kyler Murray. I'll dive into some of the keys of the game for the Cardinals here, but just looking at some of Bryce Young's, I guess, advanced stats and some of the other stats as he approaches the game against the Cardinals here. You can see here, he's 5'10". We know. I mean, I'm not going to dive into that, but it's a 6-23 career record. And I'm curious to see how, how the defense looks against a guy like Bryce Young. A little bit mobile. He's 5'10". He's short. He hasn't shown a great ability to make a lot of, good decisions. And I'm excited to see what Rallis can do here, especially under, again, pressure, hopefully. A very young quarterback who hasn't been very good. You can see at the bottom, the Arizona D needs to force Young to pick up where he left off last week in Jacksonville, posting the lowest passer rating of any starting quarterback. I'm excited to see what they can do here. Of course, last week, the O-line was a little bit of a mess. The D-line didn't look fantastic. I'm looking for them to step up. The Panthers are not a very good offensive team by any means. Hopefully, they can get it done here. And of course, from the Arizona Cardinals side of things, in the offensive, part of the ball here, we need, we need Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray. That's a connection that I'm looking out for. Of course, Trey McBride, he's going to get his touches. But someone else who I want to mention is Michael Wilson. And obviously heading into now an interesting part of his career, he caught a clutch ball in last week's game. He's going to be someone to keep an eye out on. Now, obviously, Marv had that big touchdown. I think Marv's going to, have a really good game. I mean, you're going up against a Panthers team. They don't have a fantastic secondary. I think this is going to be a huge game for Kyler Murray, a huge game for Marvin Harrison. You can't really blame rust anymore, right? The rust is off now, and you can see this here, the final game prediction. This is from Sports Illustrated. They kind of did a little article. I want to get your guys' thoughts. They say the Cardinals should win this game if they can execute their game plan. They're more talented than the Panthers, and that should show in the matchup. 22-14. Bold prediction here is that McMillan goes for 100 yards and his first career touchdown. The Cardinals secondary suspect, giving McMillan the opportunity to prove why he was a top 10 pick in this year's NFL draft. Yeah, keep an eye out on McMillan as well. Of course, the Panthers, the rookie. I'm going to go with like 40-22 for the Cardinals. I'm fully confident in the Cardinals, ability here and to obviously, step up. I'm actually going to go to 40-21. We're going to go with an even number, given some weird things could happen. So I'm going to go 40-21 for the Cardinals. And also, the Cardinals secondary is a little bit suspect. Will Johnson had an unbelievable first game for the Cardinals. A video coming on that probably tomorrow. Folks, let me know below your thoughts are. This is your place to be for Cardinals content all season long. Let me know if you enjoyed the video, and appreciate you guys for watching. Cheers.